Restaurant Unstoppable. What the most successful restaurateurs know that you don't. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest. She originates from Newfields, New Hampshire, and is a graduate of the University of New Hampshire, where she studied liberal arts, political science, and communications. In 2003, she joined Jumpin Jays Fish Cafe, where she would go on to become general manager. In 2016, she partnered with Jay McSharry, her previous boss at Jumpin Jays, and Andrew Wilson to open the Rail Penny Tavern, which in 2020 was recognized by New Hampshire Magazine as one of the best overall dining experiences in New Hampshire. Kate McGrath, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I am unstoppable.
Yes, you are, and I cannot wait to dive into your story. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Every day I start my day thinking, take your chance, and also just recognize when that chance is there, because far too often we don't really see it and we'll let things pass by.
How do you know? Like, is it like a gut feeling? And like, what does taking that chance look like?
Taking the chance is honestly just believing in yourself and recognizing that it might not be the easy choice. It might not be the easy decision, and you have to think about where you want to be in the future and what you're willing to do to get there.
I love that. And honestly, I think we get so worked up in our heads sometimes. Like we build things up to be greater than they actually are, or like more scary than it actually is. And like we are literally like just like specks of dust on a rock hurling through space. Like the universe is so great, and we get so worked up about these little things in life, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Just take the chance. Just
take
go
the
for
chance.
it. I love it.
Inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. You just got to take it one little bit at a time.
Kate did brag that she has some really great taglines and inspirational quotes. She's like, how do I choose just one?
I have so many. It's not even funny. I'm known for my taglines.
I love it. It's huge. So where does it make sense to start sharing your story, Kate?
I mean, if we're going to talk about the restaurant industry, that would start to me by having a really hard work ethic. I mean, my ability to put in as much time, as many hours as is needed is really what is, I think, part of my success story. Both of my parents were extremely hard workers and would do whatever they needed to do to provide for me and my sister and make us feel comfortable in life. But I'll never forget when I was like 17 years old, standing in my kitchen, and my mom said, if you just learn to become a waitress, no matter where you go or what you do, you will always have a job.
Yes, that is great advice. And I think not many people realize how significant like their role in the restaurant industry is. If you are somebody who likes to travel, like you can literally, like this industry will get you anywhere in the world. There's always opportunity for you.
So travel is a huge part of my world in my life. Like I really wasn't exposed to it when I was younger. And so by the time I was in college and one of my best friends decided to go travel, I was, really in this strange place where I wanted to succeed in school, but I also wanted to see the world. And truthfully, the restaurant industry is what made that all like come together for me.
Really?
And 100%.
Where in the timeline does it make sense? Because we can bookmark this if it's later on.
It would be in negotiating my contract at Jumpin Jays.
Okay, let's wait then, because
Sure.
You came on in 2003, right? You were 19 years old.
Yes.
It wasn't your first restaurant job, was it?
No, I had the opportunity to work at the Old Salt in Hampton as well. So that's where I started hosting and just had my first glimpse of the restaurant world, which was very fun and exciting. And the other employees that I was working with, like I really admired so many of them and really wanted to just kind of be on their same level. So, that was my sort of catalyst to like learn great service, to learn how to take care of people, and to recognize needs and wants even before people know what they want.
Yeah. Do you think you had the bug at this time? Like, did you catch the hospitality bug? Like, were you convinced like this was your path, or did it take some more?
No, I was really into the money. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like I had a really great time doing it, but it was definitely the green that was inspiring me.
I mean, there's few jobs you can get as a teenager and have as much earning potential than the restaurant industry, for sure. Any key mentors at the Old Salt, or did that mentorship not really kick in until you took your job at Jumpin Jays?
Well, I have a lot of respect for the Higgins family. Just the fact that it was like a family-run, operated establishment, that was pretty cool. From grandma, upstairs in the office to like the kids coming into the kitchen and playing. Like, I love that because my kiddo comes into the restaurant here and is just like part of the team, like he knows when he's going downstairs to say corner. So like
train him young,
get him in. So I think that was a really wonderful way to just sort of enter into the industry there.
Yeah.
And as far as like a true mentor in the restaurant industry, it would certainly start with Kath Gallant of Blue Moon Evolution, and then clearly Jay McSharry is my man.
So who came into your life chronologically first? I know we chatted before we hit record. I know you're friends. So side note, fun fact. Kate was friends with my sister and Jared's sister growing up, and I didn't put the pieces of the puzzle together until I picked up Jared to come here, and it's a small world.
It is a small world.
So we started talking about that, and you were talking about how you're really close friends with Kat, my past guest in the show from Blue Moon, her daughter. So I mean, great restaurant family, great family to be influenced by. Get into that influence.
So the biggest thing with Kath was I remember being at her house in high school and opening up her cabinet, and she'd say to me, "Kate, go ahead and take whatever you want." And I just kind of stare blankly because I had no idea what anything was. It was like all from Blue Moon. It was labels I had never seen before. It was like quinoa and whole grains. And, I'm used to like steak and potatoes or like grilled cheese on white bread with yellow cheese.
So it was like your first like introduction to like what food could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And just her food was really amazing. Like, I was so privileged to be at their house all the time, and she would just like whip something up and it would just be the most delicious thing you had ever had in your life.
Nice. I love that. So do you think they influenced you in getting into the like working in restaurants, or was that just by chance that you were friends with these folks?
Well, definitely by chance, I would say, although the way that I was introduced into Jumpin Jays and everything was because Alyssa's father helped to build out Jumpin Jays. Okay. In return, Alyssa was offered and earned the host position at Jumpin Jays because she's bomb. And
so Mr. Gallant.
Yes.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. So Alyssa started hosting there and bussing, and I was working doubles at the Old Salt in Hampton from like 10 to 10, and she would work like 3.5 hours as a busser for, crushing it, but 3.5 hours. And she'd always make more cash than I did. I was like, you've got to find a way to get me in there. So she had to put her name out there to get me a chance to work there. And I, even though I had already been serving and had done my time and sort of moving my way up the ladder as I had thought, I did recognize that this was my chance to work at Jumpin Jays. And so I took the bait and started hosting. I
love the hosting position, by the way. It's
my favorite.
Probably my most favorite position. All right, so I'm curious. Jumpin Jays opened in 2000, right?
Correct.
So where was Jumpin Jays? Like, paint that picture of like where they were in their life cycle, their journey. Because I know they scaled a lot. I know they at least blowed down a wall at one point.
Oh,
it was smaller originally, right?
It was really tiny to start. The very first year, I think it had maybe like 16 seats or something like that, 16, 20 seats.
I think I said 20, yeah.
It was real tiny. I didn't work there until they had actually opened up the first wall. But then in time, there was a second wall that was opened up, and Jay was able to expand ultimately 3 times.
Nice. Okay, so get into like your first impression of what was it anything unique about Jays versus the other places you worked, or like just what was that experience like?
Jumpin Jays was an entirely different experience. I was on a whole other level of professionalism, from menu knowledge. The chefs that we were working with at that time included like Simon Lambert, who opened up 4, and Jethro, whose last name I'm forgetting, but he works over at Massimo. Just John Harrington. There's really some Jason Johnson. Wow, I can just go on. The list just goes on and on. So the chefs that were there were really a whole new caliber for me. Mm-hmm. The level of service was to the extreme. The idea of like wiping down tables and that anything on it, you know, is trash. Like if there's an empty can, that's trash. If there's, you know, a wrapper from oyster crackers or something, like that's trash. That can't be there. Like everything needs to look perfect, polished all the time.
So who at this time when you came on board 3 years into Jumpin Jay's existence, who was like the leader? Who was the person kind of like setting the tone and kind of showing people what the expectation was? Is there one person that comes to mind?
Laminda Puckett was the original general manager of Jumpin Jays. She was this fiery little redhead who went on to open up the Red Ginger in Portsmouth, a little sandwich shop, which I think closed just a couple of years ago, but she had a great run. She was really intense, and she was amazing with the guests. So I had the privilege of hosting with her and seeing how she interacted with people. I mean, just knowing people's names and faces when they walk in the door and greeting them just with the warmest smile and genuine, you know, like happiness to see them.
Drop her name on us one more time.
Laminda Puckett, or Mindy.
Mindy for short. So what did she like? Is there anything like reflecting back? You know, she was setting the pace. She was kind of leading the charge, right? But did she teach you anything like in particular? Was she a mentor to you in any kind of way? Was there somebody like that for you?
I mean, I really learned how to work a host book, you know, turn times and making the right accommodations and really being able to ultimately play the game of Tetris when it comes to hosting.
Paint that picture of what that job done right looks like.
Well, I mean, back in the day and now are like kind of two different stories. You know, back in the day we were working with like a 3-ring binder and, you know, different squares, and you would have to like allocate a certain amount of time for a party, assuming, you know, 3 top is going to take, you know, an hour and 45 minutes. And then you want to schedule the next party, you know, right after that.
Then you know these people and you know they always stay a little extra longer. So you got to customize it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And being able to adjust to walk-ins and just always being able to kind of like morph and shift and do what is needed to do to get as many people through that door and at your table.
Yeah, and I meant to mention this earlier, but I think that the host position is the most underrated position in the restaurant industry, for sure, because it can make or break a dining experience. You look at the most successful restaurateurs, they're hosts.
Honestly, you know? Hosting is 100% my favorite position, and I do find it crazy that it is considered the entry-level position.
I know. It's ludicrous in my opinion. Why is it your favorite?
Well, I mean, honestly, you are the first person that the guest sees and the last person that, you know, they have an interaction with before they walk out, and so you're really able to set the tone. I think really greeting people, you know, I always say that working in the restaurant every day is like throwing a party. And I have the opportunity to mingle with people and check in on them and know how their lives are and see their kids grow. And it's just this wonderful experience to have just that interaction.
Yeah. And they're controlling like the book, you know, like they're controlling. Ultimately, they're like the governor, you know, and I don't think people realize how important that is. Like, because like if they make one little mistake that could like mess up, it could trigger like the rest of the night could go bad, you know.
Totally, you don't get your guests to the window, or like you know, you don't allocate the right turn time for them, or you know, you miss the fact that it said birthday and you're supposed to bring out a candle on the dessert. Like there are so many things that fall on the shoulders of the host.
Exactly.
And communication is what is key.
And usually when everyone else is getting into the weeds, that's when the host's position starts to slow down. And most restaurants you go, the host just stays locked to that counter. And I think it's good that you want to have that presence at that first impression, but at the same time, like turn around and like read a room. Like is somebody trying to get someone's attention? Like go over and be like, can I relay a message to the server? Like whatever. Like you can be there and such, not just for the guests, but for your team, because you can read them. Like, oh, Sally's in the weeds. Like maybe like give her a break and like hook up somebody who's not really busy right now. Like, there's just so many little things.
Sure. I mean, I don't believe in standing still in the restaurant. So there, you know,
see it all the time though when you go out to eat. Like when you go to other places, like the host just stays glued, and like they just don't leverage that position nearly enough. In my opinion.
I believe the host position is a fluid position, and that they're required to be as much of the team as anybody else.
So what's some like Jedi host like next level moves that you teach your team if you agree with me that it's like such a valuable position?
You know, efficiency is one thing. I really do believe in keeping efficiency in conversation. So knowing what you have available for reservation times, and when you're able to answer the phone, instead of saying like, oh, well, what time did you want to come in and how many people are in your party? And, you know, it's really just like, I have a table available at 7:30, you know, and it's just like, it gives you the opportunity to just focus on what you need to do, which is helping out your team, you know, getting off the phone so that you can then tend to your guests who are at the door. And so I think having the proper means of communication and the proper speech is really important. And also just having the knowledge. I mean, you have to educate your team. Without education, I don't know, menu, name of the restaurant, phone number, website, like what's in this menu item? What does this caption at the top mean? What's that symbol on there? I don't, you know, like.
And it sounds like education was a big part of Jumpin Jay early. One of the things that you noticed, not to say anybody was doing anything wrong, but you from moving from the Old Salt to Jumpin Jays, you said it wasn't an elevated level of education. Did I pick up on that? Yeah,
definitely. Wine service was one of those things that was really huge. I've had the opportunity to expand my palate and also travel consequently through wine, and that's a huge learning curve. Wine is a language in and of itself.
Oh my gosh, it's so I actually, before I started the podcast, when I got the idea for the podcast, I was working at Jeweltown Vineyards as the assistant winemaker.
Okay.
And
I can get on your level right now.
Absolutely. Like, it's so like it's such a deep world. It's just like it's endless. So backpedaling, you said, you know, on this idea of the significance of training, can you really paint that picture of like what they gave you and like what the training looked like and what the education looked like? Like, what level did they take that?
We had tests all the time, you know, to be able to know that we were staying on top of the menu and that we were, you know, studying the wine and the drink list and could pretty much recite anything, you know, down to which dish had salt and pepper, pinch of sugar or what have you. I mean, we were very, very, very knowledgeable.
Give me an example of like some of like the obscure things that they would expect you to know and why they thought that was important.
I mean, I had somebody come in one time and ask me where our butter came from, which, you know, I was like,
the cow.
I'm going to have to go look at that, you know? And so I would get to the point where I would end up knowing labels, you know, like where did it come from? Like not only like what is the label or what is the brand, but what is the state and what is the town that it was in, and try to get in as close to the food as possible, which I think has honestly been way easier now, especially where things are a lot more local and you really get to know your farmers and where your food's coming from. So I think that's gotten even better in time, but that was definitely something that it's like, you know, where's the tea made? You know?
Well, I mean, I think how much easier is it to remember something when there's a person tied to it, right? When it's not just an object, but it's a relationship.
Totally.
You know, I think it's huge. What else made an impression on you in your early days when you joined the team at Jumpin Jays?
Honestly, efficiency and just the concept of like full hands in, full hands out, and just the time to lean, time to clean, like all of those little things. Like I learned all those mantras there, and those are things that I've really held closely. You know, 3 hellos and 3 goodbyes. Like anytime your guest is in the establishment, like it doesn't matter whether they're coming or going. Like I say, if you don't know what to say to someone, just say, it's nice to see you. Because regardless, it's nice to see you coming or it's nice to see you going, but it's good to see you.
I know.
You know?
I think it's just important to acknowledge people, right?
Oh my gosh, of course.
Like once they walk through the doors, you see it all the time. People just walk around each other. And like once they're in, they kind of get ignored unless it's your table, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But like you said, I think Zingerman's does it really well. I can't remember the rule. It's like they have like a 3-10, like a 10-5-3 rule or something like that. But like depending on how far away they are from you, determines like if they're 10 feet away, make eye contact. If they're 5 feet away, then like verbally say something, like acknowledge their presence. But it's so people just want to be seen. It's so powerful.
Definitely. Yeah. You know, the one thing that maybe I haven't touched on, but I think it's one of the foundations of my restaurant life is full house pool.
What's that? Get into it.
So some restaurants, you are a server and you have a section, and in your section you make your tips. So whatever, you know, however you service your guests, that's your tip amount, and that's what you take home with you.
Yep.
Full house pool is essentially that everyone has their section that they tend to, but nobody has their own section. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to take care of all of our guests and not just your section of guests. So full house pool means that at the end of the night, you're all walking with the same hourly rate.
Yeah. So I've had conversations with people, their names will not be included, who believe that pooling tips is horrible because it creates less incentive for people to work harder. What are your thoughts to that statement?
So I say if you can't rise to the top and keep up with the team, then you're just not able to be on the team.
Yeah.
So I believe I believe the cream rises to the top. And I've had a lot of, with Full House Pool, I think the biggest thing is that you have to, as the owner or manager, be willing to terminate people. Because if you're not willing to work just as hard as your coworkers, if you're not showing up on time, if you're not pulling your weight with your side work, if you're not earning the same tips, if you don't have regulars and guests requesting you, if you are not part of the team, then you cannot be on the team.
So what are some of the most significant pros to pooling?
Let's say you have somebody who comes in who is a big tipper, or you have a large party. It really cuts down on drama because you're not fighting over who's going to get that in their section. And so if there's no unfairness, like somebody drops a $200 tip, and it doesn't just go to the girl who got the $200 tip. It really goes to the team and it goes to the pool. For me, the benefit is that everybody works together. At the end of the day, if you have a guest who is unhappy with their experience, but you could have corrected it by asking someone on your team to lend a hand, everybody loses in that scenario because your guest isn't going to come back.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity to rely on your team and say, hey, I just got triple sat and I know these folks are waiting on a drink order. Can you give me a hand? And then that segues everything so that they end up having a great experience. Then they come back.
Yeah.
And then they keep coming back. And now you've made a regular.
Yeah, I love that. And even reflecting on what you're saying, because I hosted at the library restaurant right around the same time you were hosting at Jumpin Jays. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, because we pooled tips, or we tipped out the bartender and the host. And I remember thinking to myself, it gave, knowing that I was going to get tipped out, and knowing that we're going to share the tips made me want to show up that much more for everybody else. Because I noticed the difference that if I showed up and I went a little extra to support my team, to be there for my team, when they didn't need me to necessarily be there, but I could see that they were busy, and that if I could take a tray from somebody and just do something simple like that for a server, when they're deep in it, that is such a huge relief. And they recognize it, they appreciate it, they show you their appreciation when they tip you out. I know it's a little different, the model you were using, because you guys share it across all boards, right? You pull it. But it's the same mentality, I think, that if you're there, if it encourages people to be there for each other. And I can agree with that. Take us through the logistics of how you track that, how you pull the money in, any legalities associated with that we should be mindful of when we are pulling tips that are worth bringing to the conversation.
The main legality that I would say is that as an owner and manager, you're not allowed to be part of the tip pool. So really, at the end of the day, I cannot force my staff to pool their tips. I have been able to encourage it and been able to share my vision of why I think that's the best step moving forward for us and for our team. And my staff has really been able to get on board with that and recognize the value in working together. And truthfully, when I opened the restaurant, although I had a pooling model, I modeled it so that the servers pooled their tips, the bartenders pooled their tips, and then the servers would tip out the bartenders. In time, due to the cooperation that we had and having a few employees who worked as both a server and a bartender, they recognized that there really wasn't any difference in what they were doing and how they were working. And it was my team who brought it up to me that they thought it should be a full house pool across the board. So,
back of house and front of house?
Front of the house.
Okay. I was curious about that.
Back of the house is its own entity, which I do think is one of the interesting aspects of the restaurant industry, or a model that can shift. I will say that we have shifted significantly with how we have taken care of our support staff, especially since COVID. Because honestly, the truth of the matter is that the dynamics have shifted. what you do as a server is a little bit less intense now because of the distance that you're keeping, and maybe we're not focused on like wiping your table as closely or getting up next to you, but it's the bussers and the who are actually a little bit closer and like touching your silverware, and so we during this time have shifted our model and have actually been giving more to our support staff.
Okay. The one thing I want to get out of you before we move on, I'm loving the conversation, by the way. You said that you're able to sell your staff or to convince your staff that this is the best approach for them and for the business. What does that dialogue look like? So if we're listening to this and we want to go in this direction of tip pooling, how can we convince our own people that this is the best way?
I mean, I think it's truthfully a personality of you have to have the right personality and the willingness to trust in your team. So I think it even goes back further to choosing the right people to be part of the team. But once you're on the team, it's not really a sell. It's more of just an understanding that we are going to be here together. And at the end of the day, we're here to support each other. We're here to take care of our guests. We're here to serve great food. Yeah. And if we can do those three things, then we're going to be successful. And really, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just something that I so deeply believe in that I hope that when I discuss it with people that they can see that I think that it's really in their best interest to be that team.
I feel that. I love that. Yeah. So when did it start shifting in your career that like this is no longer just my for now job for cash? Because you were with Jumpin Jays for 8 years, correct?
14.
Why did I get 8? Where did I get 8 years from? Maybe you managed for 8 years?
I started in 2003. I became general manager in 2005, and then I left in 2016 so that I could take a few months before opening Rail Penny.
Yeah. So what did this evolution look like? When did your role start changing? Did they just start giving you more work gradually over time, or did they just take you off the host position and say, now you're the general manager? How did that transition work for you?
I did a couple years as a server, and I maybe took like 4 months to attend bar just to get a little bit of a better understanding of it. But basically, I graduated UNH. I was 22. The general manager at the time, Jordana Langlois, was leaving for California. She was the one who worked most closely with me and saw potential. Okay. So that was when I had my first interview with Jay.
How did you know that she saw something in you? Take us through that.
I'm a super hard worker, and I'm really passionate about what I do. So not only is it like taking care of the restaurant and doing everything that I can to make it clean and run efficiently and be there to support the team, but also, my investment in my guests and how much I genuinely care about them and get to know them. And
can you train that?
I don't know. No, I don't think you can. Yeah. I think that there's a person who is like industry,
Yeah.
I think it's a mentality.
Danny Meyer calls it the 51%ers, right? I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Oh, love Danny.
Yeah. I always throw an S at the end of his name. Danny Meyer.
Danny
I apologize, Meyer. Danny. In case you're listening to this, I know you are.
Of course he is.
Of course not. So when she, take us to that point where she suggested that you might be a good manager, how did that conversation look?
That was actually a huge turning point in my life. And this was actually, if we go back to taking a chance, this is one of those chances. So 22, just graduated college, thought I was going to move to Washington, D.C. and get into politics, and kind of had an aha moment, which was no, don't do that. So that was ultimately why I was still at the restaurant. So I think she just knew that I was somebody who is, if given an opportunity, is really passionate about it and wouldn't accept failure.
Yeah. How did she say this? How did she bring it up? Do you remember what she said to you?
She just sat me down at the bar and said, I'm going to be leaving for California, and I think you should take over the manager position.
Okay.
I said, okay. And so then I said I was interested, and I went and talked to Jay. And that was, like I said, it was a really hard time for me because I was 22 and I had a bunch of friends who were traveling the world and backpacking. And that was where my heart and my passion was at the time. I really just wanted to make some money and get on a plane and go everywhere.
Okay. And were they receptive to that?
So ultimately, when I talked to Jay and we discussed me taking on Jumpin Jays, like being a manager there, I remember just expressing my concern about travel. And I negotiated with him to have him take care of one travel plane ticket for me once a year so that I could go somewhere on my vacation.
That's pretty awesome. What should we learn from that?
Well, I think that sometimes you have to realize what you want and what you want to try to do and find that happy medium.
Yeah, and communicate. Let it be known. 'Cause
Absolutely.
you can't expect people to know what you want. You have to state it. You have to put it out there before you agree to terms, too. At the beginning of the relationship is when you discuss this stuff.
Openness and honesty is, I think, key to being in this relationship or anything, truthfully. I mean, if you just put your, heart and cards out on the table and you're willing to just be truthful, it will take you far.
Yeah, and I think the other lesson too is what does that communicate to your staff when you are willing to work for them or with them on these terms, right? You're willing to meet them halfway. And not only are you willing to meet them halfway, but you're willing to support what they want to do and help and pay for them to go places, right?
I mean, Jay is the man, and what he really understood is that I am there for him and I will support him and I will have his back. And I knew in turn that he had my best interest at heart too. Even a few years after I took on managing, it was probably, 2005 or 2007, 2008. And I had told Jay that I was going to quit as general manager of Jays. And he asked me why. And I said, well, I've been doing it a couple years now and I still really haven't lived out my 20s. And I want to go to Mexico. And he said, well, how long do you want to go to Mexico? And I was like, I need a couple months, and I said, I love you. I love Jumpin Jays. I love everything about this place. I was like, I need to be me for a little. And he said, find someone who's willing to take your position, train them for, a couple months. And when you're ready to come back, you'll have your job waiting for you.
What does that communicate?
Honestly, I think he valued me as an employee. I think Jay knew from the beginning that he and I were going to have a relationship for a long haul.
And you mentioned earlier, it's so important that you know that your people, the people that you're working for, care for you. They have to know. So paint that picture of the things that he would do, not with just you, but things all of you would do for the people that you're, bringing up with you, because you're a manager at this point. So you have to echo the same things that he's doing. He's listening to you. You're also listening to the people that you're bringing up. What does that look like? Showing people that you care.
I think starting with respect and also trust. So I love knowing everything that's going on, and to give up some responsibility, it can be really challenging sometimes. Yeah. I can remember giving up the bar program at Jumpin Jays and relinquishing that over, which was a extreme turning curve for me to not be the one in charge of what the cocktails were.
Yeah,
or
I can relate to that.
Because you feel passionate about it. It's I have a couple cocktails that we started the Rail Penny with, and I'm like, oh my God, those are mine. They can't go anywhere.
Just in setting up today, trying to give Jared more responsibility and arranging stuff. I know what it's like to not jump in and to not influence things that you had control over. Mm-hmm. So what advice do you have for somebody who might be going through that right now, who might be trying to delegate an element of the business to somebody? And how did you remove yourself slowly from that?
I think by keeping a cautious eye on what was coming out of the bar per se, or what the cocktails were, and making sure that they were staying on trend with what we were doing, and just giving little points of guidance without trying to be overbearing. I will say I also have matured a lot because I think being so young and eager and not having a family, and there were so many different points that made me the badass bitch that I was.
Okay.
Because I was very much you're either with me or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you can hear me talking to you right now in the middle of service, then you're messing up.
Okay.
And if I'm not talking to you, then we're cool.
So when somebody is messing up, how do you balance that? Because it can be tough to talk to somebody in the middle of service if they're like, do you have an approach, a best practice to like not completely throw somebody off their game in the middle of service?
Trying not to really get into it in service is super important.
Yeah.
I think that for me, what is important is to be able to have somebody identify the moment and then to be able to reflect on it afterward.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, you'll be so weeded or in it and you don't even realize, or, as a server, like you don't realize what you're doing or you don't see your facial expressions or your body language. And I think it's really important to like point it out, like, hey, you have a sour face right now. Like, let's change that, and then going back and talking about it later, like what was going on? Why do you have such a bad attitude? Like, but I think trying to just correct it in the moment and then reflect on it after.
Create self-awareness. Because
Yes.
sometimes people just aren't self-aware, and like you have to bring them to that self-aware point and then address it later. I love that approach. Anything we haven't discussed up to this point in your come up before the conversation starts with Jay about maybe opening your own place?
No, I mean, I think I have to give credit definitely to all of the other like servers and bartenders who I have kind of grown up with, because, I barely even knew how to make a Cosmo or a Manhattan, and I'm like telling you what to do. And,
Right.
and I think that, I really have to give a lot of respect to like Mindy, who started managing before me, who set the tone in the restaurant, and just the people that I work with who were willing to work with me and help me become where I am.
Yeah, that's something I think I kind of want to unpackage, because you just mentioned again, you mentioned earlier that if you're not with me, you're not, I can't remember the exact words you used, but it's that tone, that getting people aligned and making sure everyone is on the same page. What is the secret to making sure everyone's on the same page? Everyone is aligned with what the expectation is, what the standard is, what the vision is. How do you guys communicate that?
I think just having a really clear vision and clear expectations is just the way to go. You can't always be somebody's best friend and somebody's boss all at the same time. So letting somebody know like what you expect of them makes it so that you can draw that line in the sand, and you can make it really clear about, you're not meeting my expectations as, me as your employer, versus like we can be friends.
Yeah.
That's always a really, really hard line to kind of tread on. But I think if you just have clear expectations and you're honest, like you can, exactly how I feel about you just by looking at my face. Like I can tell you what you need to know with my eyes.
I want to spend the rest of our time together talking about how you made this transition from, general manager to partner in the greater family of restaurants. So when did like the conversation even start?
I believe the conversation started back in 2015, and Jay actually reached out to me to say that there was a property for sale out in, middle of New Hampshire, and was I interested in it? He knew that I had grown up around here. And so really he had come to me with the opportunity to potentially invest with him.
In 2015.
Yes.
So what was going through your mind when this first came to you?
I mean, I was super excited, and also I think a little naive. Like I believe so wholeheartedly in Jay. And when he offered me this opportunity, I was just like, yeah, of course I would do this. I mean, why wouldn't I? Like,
right.
How would I not pursue? I mean, there was not even like a negative thought about it. It was sort of just like, okay, so now's the time. Like, let's do this.
So did you ever like make it clear that you someday wanted to open your own place? Did you put that into the universe? Did you communicate that? Was it conversations like those dreaming conversations, those visionary conversations that you were having that maybe gave them the clue?
I mean, I feel like such a jerk when I say it sometimes, but no. Like,
why would you feel like a jerk?
Well, because I know like some people like dream of having a restaurant, or it's just like something that they like work so hard for. Like they'll go to school for it and they invest the time and they work at so many restaurants, and then maybe it just like doesn't ever pan out. And meeting Jay and having the opportunity to be part of Jumpin Jays was not, I mean, it wasn't just about restaurants. Like it's greater than that. It's really about people.
Yes. And I am a self-proclaimed Jay McSharry fanboy to like the nth degree, because he comes up organically so often, and how he doesn't build restaurants, he builds people.
Totally.
And that's, it's so clear. And he recognizes when somebody has it. And I think he just saw it in you. He knew you had it. He knew your strength. He was willing to work with you to keep you, whatever it took to make sure you came back home. Whenever you left, you would come back to Jumpin Jays, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that you were going to go off and do your own thing. If somebody didn't give you the opportunity, you know, if he didn't give you the opportunity, somebody else would, you know? And I think that's, in knowing that and being willing. So like, how did he approach you? Like, what does it look like? Like, what's that? How does, like, if we have somebody on our team who is like a hospitalitarian to like the nth degree, and we know that they're going to go on and do their own thing, like, how do we approach that person and give them opportunity?
I mean, it was a meeting in the office. It came off as kind of any other meeting that we were going to have. There was nothing like super special to make me think that I was walking into a different scenario. Yeah. And, you know, so it was really just, you know, Jay McSharry casual, like, oh, how's the restaurant? Da, da, da. Oh, by the way, do you want to open up a restaurant with me? I'm like, yeah.
That's so cool.
So, I mean, honestly, like, I've worked so hard. I've worked so hard to be here. Like, the hours I've put in, the passion that I have behind it, the, I mean, blood, sweat, tears, like, for real. And I've really, like, sunk my teeth into it. Like, Jumpin Jays was my first baby, for sure.
Yeah. And I love that, because I don't think I've said it yet. I'm surprised if I haven't said it yet, because I say this all the time. Treat it like you own it. And someday you will. Maybe not that restaurant, but you'll create an opportunity for yourself. You treat it like you own it. And you treated it like you owned it from like the very beginning. You were passionate. You were a go-getter. You probably didn't need to be told to do things. You just treated it like it was your own. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, and I think that's part of, you know, Jay is all about opportunity, and when he sees it, he's willing to take it. And I think knowing that, you know, I was ready for my own place, whether I was aware of it or not, you know, I know that he knew by partnering with me that he didn't have to worry. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I have, again, like, blood, sweat, tears. Like, Rail Penny is my, like, world. I mean, like I said, my family's here, my kiddos here. Like, I mean, he's hosted with me. Like, it is, I don't know. It's just I'll take care of this place.
And I feel like a lot of people, I don't know why they avoid or they don't give more opportunity. But like, what is your advice for structuring that relationship, that business relationship, when you're, because did you put money up? Like, how did that work? You did? Yeah.
So, Jay invested 51% and I invested 49%. And then we took out a loan for the rest. So, he does have that 1% over me right now. Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because like, you know,
you kind of have to.
Yeah. Why do you kind of have to?
I just think that you have to have the scales tipped one way or another. You know, like, I do understand 50-50 partnerships are great, but for me, like, Jay is such a mentor to me. Like, I will always be one to follow his guidance and to take everything that he says wholeheartedly.
But he follows, because I've spoken to other people who he works with. We just had
Dave Vargas,
yes,
Matt Lewis.
Thank you very much. Matt Lewis. We've had so many people that are close to. I even had Jonathan Blakesley on the show too. Like, so many people. And like, usually I don't know until after I send the invitation that there's some type of relation. But he uses that approach, I think, with either that 49 or that 50 split. And I want to learn more about why that's the right way to go about doing things. 'Cause I do think that the model that your family of restaurants uses is the right way to do it, is to create opportunity and split it. And if you're worried about the blender in the background, don't be worried, because we're in a restaurant right now. I'm totally used to it. I saw like your face kind of shift a little bit. You're fine. You're completely fine. But what's going through your mind? Like, what's your advice for people who are talking about maybe opening another restaurant? Maybe they do have somebody on their team, and like, how do you coach them through that right now in this moment?
Oh, geez. Well, you know, I think when you are partnering with somebody, it really helps to get the best of both worlds. You know, Jay is really like a money man. Like, I can trust him to be looking at our numbers and helping me like hone in on our food costs and our labor costs. And then I'm here to really be the face of the restaurant, to create the relationships with our guests and my staff, and to instill all the values that I expect them to have in the service industry.
So what lanes are you guys in? Like, how do you guys complete each other? Like, what are you responsible for, and what is like the restaurant group responsible for?
So I'm kind of like the stepchild out here. I used to be like the queen bee, and now I'm like out of town, which is also great. I mean, I love Epping more than anything. It's really wonderful. But so essentially, Jay and I are partners for the restaurant, but I'm also the general manager here. So we ultimately are able to split profit, but I also pay myself to be here on the daily.
Okay, I love that approach. Is there a money management system that you guys use to how does that get tracked? Are they responsible for the accounting?
Yeah, so I have multiple coworkers that I work with in the office who do marketing for us, or the QuickBooks and all of that. So there is a huge team. I mean, I say it's huge because I rely on people so heavily. Like, I don't know what I would do without our office managers.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I would do if we didn't have our facilities manager, Todd. Like, he whipped up all of these little dividers for us in no time. So we definitely have a team, and it starts with Jay, and then it trickles down to like all of the managers. And
I think that's the trick right there, is that you might be 50-50 or whatever, 49-50, however you dice it up, but you have to think when you take this approach and you have the support of, you have a whole army, like the restaurant group of people that are doing the details, like the little things behind the scenes, the marketing, the accounting, the PR, or whatever, like the all the things you're supposed to do, but not one restaurateur has the time in their day to do it all.
Totally.
Right? So it lets you focus on what you do best: managing the restaurant, being present, training, mentoring, or maybe if you're a chef, it lets you focus on the menu, or like whatever it is, and you get to. I feel like there's just so much more impact in this approach, and it's worth giving up a big chunk of whatever the profit is, because you're so much of the other stuff is being taken care of, so you can focus.
Totally.
On what you do.
I couldn't imagine having, when Jay started Jumpin Jays, he had to find his office manager. He had to, outsource marketing. And at this point, like, he's built his team, so this is the same team that I was working with when I was at Jumpin Jays. And so it was a really natural transition to be here, at Rail Penny. But yeah, I mean, the people behind the scenes, like, really are so integral. Like I said, I mean, between like Stacy, Lauren, Kyla, like, those are our three main girls, like, who just keep everything in order, in check, make the post for Insta and everything, like, or not the post, but like the posters, or like we have like a media marketing event.
That's a whole other arm that people don't even consider in today's age. And I'm actually recording a workshop today. After I go home, I have to record a workshop with Sean Walchef out of San Diego, California, who is convinced that it's media first, restaurant second. And he has this whole approach of like, we're a media company first, and then we're a restaurant. And I think it's especially today, because you don't get the same opportunities to make impressions on your people face to face. You have to make those impressions in other places to stay top of mind. Like, I don't know if it's like media first, restaurant second, maybe 50-50. You might have to convince me later on in our conversation. But I mean, but when you partner, the point I'm trying to get at is, when you partner with a greater group, you get access to these resources that are critical resources that you normally would have to scale and build up to even think about getting access to those things.
Definitely.
Yeah. What were your biggest challenges in the first couple months getting started, like reflecting at this space, what you learned trying to build out this space, the Rail Penny Tavern where we are sitting today? What were the hardest parts for you as a new time owner?
Honestly, staffing was the hardest thing for me. It had never been a challenge of mine before. And
why do you think that is?
It's just a different like demographic in the area. So Portsmouth, it's like a restaurant town, and I used to have basically like a list of people just waiting to start serving at Jumpin Jays, because it was lucrative and it was a great team and it was a great place to work. Yeah, it's established. You knew you were going to do well, and that would be worth your time. When we opened Rail Penny, I'm an unknown really, and although Jay's got a great name, it didn't quite have the same, like, I don't know, carryover in this area, if you will. And getting like my front of the house staff was the challenge. So it's a lot of like residential people in this area. And if you're going to be like a younger restaurant person, like maybe you're in Portsmouth or you're in Manchester and Concord, but we're like right in the center of that where you have to drive past all these other places just to get here.
Yeah.
The center of the universe, but like no one's around here.
So for a little more context, people who aren't familiar with New Hampshire seacoast, you have Portsmouth, which is like on the water, northern New Hampshire seacoast, which is southern New Hampshire. It's weird. We're like maybe I would say a 20-minute drive, maybe 12 miles, 15 miles from Portsmouth, and you're inland a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a blue collar community. Portsmouth, Rye, that whole area is wealthy. You have a lot of young people living there. It's like it's the hip place to be, and it's next to the UNH. You have a few schools there, so like it attracts a younger demographic. So I could see why it would be easier to get people, and it's like a lot more money on the seacoast, for obvious reasons. There's always more money on the seacoast, no matter where you are. So just kind of painting that picture. Keep going. Coming out here, it was.
I mean, I hate to say this, but like I would hire people and I would just look at, I'd be like, okay, so I need hands and you have 2 of them, but like you're totally not like on my level of service, like, or, well, I think you do drugs, but I don't think you're on them right now. So this is how the day is going to go, and every day I was kind of like, okay, we'll just see like who's going to apply. What am I going to get? How much can I tolerate? Like, and then, but like piece by piece, like I was finally getting like the right people and, recognizing that they are the right people, taking care of them, making sure you're working with their schedules, giving them the shifts that they want, recognizing and giving praise when due, maybe throwing a gift certificate to go out to dinner at one of the sister restaurants, but really just like making sure that you're keeping the people who you want to be here.
Exactly what Jay did with you. He said, what is it going to take to make sure you stay here? I got to buy you a ticket to Mexico. Done.
Totally.
And you just recognize those people. Can it get dangerous playing favorites? Has that ever been an issue? Like where you clearly like take care of one person better than others?
I think it's a matter of being discreet, and it's also a matter of how you play the game.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Any advice on how to play that game discreetly and respectfully, or?
I mean, this is like a very psychological place in a way, I don't want to necessarily like get into it too much, but I do believe that like everybody is different, and at the end of the day, like learning how to craft your message isn't necessarily like a straight across the board message. I think that sometimes you really need to identify who you're talking with and learning how they tick so that you can help to make them, better or understand what you need or want, or like some people really need praise. Yeah. Some people want you to leave them alone. Like,
I love the expression. I think it comes in here. First seek to understand, then seek to be understood. And I think that saying can be applied to so many things in life.
Totally.
Whether it's just a conversation or whether you're trying to get to know somebody, just try to understand what drives them, what their passions are. And if you can understand that person and what motivates them, and then you can communicate with them so much better because you know what they want. It's so powerful.
And being empathetic to people as well. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned over the course of my 20s and now like is just that, life happens. And I used to be really intolerant about like being late, like you should have it planned into your schedule that you're going to be 15 minutes late so that you're not 15 minutes late, because you're late if you're on time and you're on time if you're 5 minutes early. And if you're not here right now, then like you should have planned that the bridge was going to be up and you were going to be late, Yeah. And now I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, if you're here within 15 minutes and you call me, like we're totally cool.
Yeah. Why? What shifted in you to have that new perspective?
Number one would be my son. I think that it's crazy. I had a 6-month-old while we were trying to like open the restaurant, and he turned 1 2 days before we opened our front doors. And just that was a extremely hard time for me to try to like juggle being full-time mom and full-time career woman. Like,
I give you perspective.
Holy moly. Yeah. And so like you think about it and you're just like I think back to like a couple people who like had kids, and be late, and I'd be like, you need to be on time. And now I'm like, girl, I get it.
Yeah,
no, totally.
Do what you gotta do. I understand. I love that. Anything else that you're reflecting over the past from 2016 to when you guys, committed to making this location happen to today, that were just big lessons for you? Like if somebody else is opening a restaurant, things that you learned the hard way that you'd like to help somebody else not make that same mistake or poor decision. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I really think trying to put things in boxes and compartmentalize them and to just chew off a little bit out of a time, like the whole inch by inch, life's a cinch sort of thing. It's really easy to get overwhelmed. There are so many moving parts to opening a restaurant. And, when I took on Jumpin Jays, it had been open for 3.5 years or 4.5 years when I became GM. And in that time, there are so many kinks that got worked out and systems that have been implemented, and the wheels were already turning and moving. And, you really don't recognize how much time it takes to make the machine work, because you're literally fixing one piece at a time over the course of a year.
That other piece is wailing off.
And it's just okay, what's the challenge of the day? What takes my priority? And then ultimately, just to train people, to be able to train people, who can then train the people.
Yeah. So take us through that, because I think this is gold right here. I think it's important to recognize, like you said, it does not happen overnight. And I think people expect it to happen overnight. And it doesn't. It's that constant, gentle pressure. Again, quoting Danny Meyer, of just knowing that it's never going to be perfect. And it's your job to just constantly correct it or constantly improve it. So take us through that evolution. How did you get to the point where you are now? Do you still feel like you're fine tuning it? Where are you?
So I feel like we just got to the point 3 years in where we were operating super smooth. Everyone had their expectations, all this, what was expected of them. All side work was, written out. We had all of our efficiencies set in place, and the team was there. They knew, they knew how to work around each other. And then COVID hit.
Ugh.
So, if we're going back to what does it take to build a restaurant, I had been told it's going to take 3 years before you get to that point. And I thought, I've got 14 years of experience. I've crushed this in the past. How is this going to be so hard? And it is so hard.
Can you take us through that evolution? Where you were in the first 6 months to where you felt like you got to the next level, what that next level looked like to help you get to the next level to eventually to where you are today? Can you compartmentalize that?
Yeah.
That evolution?
Well, the first thing I would have to do is I would have to give a shout out to my manager, Kaylee Newman.
What up, Kaylee? Shout out.
She is my right hand, and she's been with me since day one. And I have been able to lean on her and trust in her. And without having her as my right hand girl, we would not be where we are.
So it sounds like the first lesson is getting someone that you can lean on to get support. 'Cause
totally.
You can't do it by yourself. I agree with that statement.
Yeah. And she wasn't, I didn't even know that she was going to be that right-hand girl until she just was. She is that personality, and that, she is just service industry. And she is a hard worker, and she's willing to do what needs to get done. And she's responsible, and she's mature, and she, leads by example. And, I guess I saw that, and I'm forever thankful for her. She is my gem.
Nice. So when you find this person, when you have this person who's your gem that you can lean on, how does that change things? What changed for you?
So it did give me a little bit more of an opportunity to step back, to focus on those little pieces and parts that need to get tweaked. I knew that she would be able to, handle the bar, and so I could focus more on the bussers and the expo and getting the food runners set up.
That was my next question. How did you know what to offload your plate, and how did you prioritize what she took on first?
So you have to just kind of hope that everybody is going to know what they're doing. Right before we were opening, my aunt actually passed away, and I had to go down to New York, and one of my training sessions with my brand new staff was actually with 2 of my former employees from Jumpin Jays.
Okay.
Because I couldn't be here, but we still had we had to open the doors, and we had a date, and I had people who needed to, start working. And so, there was just no stopping. And, being able to like lean on the two of them to help with the training was great, but it also was just like, I don't even know what people know. And I just have to hope and believe that they have gotten this training and that they have read the menu, and, for the people who are experienced, that they're, I can lean on their experience. But it was support staff that was really like my first challenge.
Okay. So your first you got the person that was like your equal that you could offload on, that could help you go through this, and then you started focusing on your support staff. What, like, be specific, what were you focusing on? Like just growing them as like professionals, or like giving them systems? What were you working on?
Honestly, giving them systems. Like, these are like kids who had zero experience in the industry. Like, I think I had said, I was willing to take anybody who was kind of willing to work. And so just recognizing somebody who had the hard work like in them, and then teaching them how to do the job.
Okay.
So we're talking about literally like the top half of the glass belongs to the guests. The bottom half of the glass belongs to you. Like, don't touch the rim. Don't like how to hold a water pitcher, like, never let the edge touch the edge. Like, that's cross-contamination.
Yeah.
Those are all little things. But again, it's like the first person who's greeting the table, and it really sets the tone. So like, if you have somebody and they're like touching your water pitcher and like slamming things down, you're just like, where am I?
But this stuff isn't common knowledge, and you can't expect it to be. You've got to train. Like, the common sense does not exist in the restaurant industry. You have to convince yourself of that.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it is a language. Like I said, wine is a language. Like the restaurant industry, it's like it's a world.
So once you built up your support staff, what was next?
Then it was really being able to focus on the level of service for my bartenders and my servers. They used to think I was crazy when I would like freak out about salt and pepper being on the table during dessert. I'm like, you don't need salt and pepper on dessert. Like, why would you have salt and pepper on the table? And they're like, it's just salt and pepper. And I'm like, but it's salt and pepper, like, or like, why is there a knife on the table? Like, they shouldn't have a knife on the table. They've already paid their check. Like, that's absolutely crazy. Like, the only thing that should be left is their water glass and their, cocktail.
Yeah. But what I'm hearing from you is that like, it's that like knowing that on day one, you're not going to be able to operate the way you want to, but not losing sight of where you want to be and slowly working your way towards that.
Yes.
And knowing that just because you can't get there on day one does not mean you shouldn't still strive to be there.
Yeah. I mean, I won't lie. Like, within the first year, there were points where I was like, this is so hard. And this is just like, I don't know if I can handle all this.
What was the hardest part for you?
The hours. We were initially open for lunch as well. So it kind of goes back to like navigating or, juggling like the mom work life, like trying to find that balance, not having my focus just 1,000,000% into the restaurant and being able to like check out at, every now and again. 'Cause that's real hard to do too.
Absolutely. When did you realize that you didn't need to be open for lunch and dinner?
Oh, that took us about a year, maybe 9 months to figure it out. But at the end of the day, we realized that not only were we sacrificing like our time and our lifestyle, but, instead of like working on new menu items or making handmade pasta, we were just like waiting for a burger to come in, and so I just felt like it really wasn't elevating us or letting us like shine where we wanted to. And it was just one of those choices where it might have been, lucrative or financially questionable, but at the end of the day, like, we weren't doing what we wanted to do, and that was to serve great food.
Yeah, and I say a lot on the show, focus on doing a few things really well. You can't be everything to everybody, and it lets you do what you do well even better when you put all of your energy into it, right?
Absolutely.
So how did you justify the closing during the day? Like, as far as like financially, were you more profitable, less profitable? Because were you like how did the numbers play out in this instance?
We definitely were making money during lunch, but it wasn't significant to like what we were making didn't outweigh the cost of what we were potentially losing. Yeah. So, I mean, that was what it came down to at the end of the day. Like, Jillian Round, who is the opening chef here, who is now the CDC over at Moxie. I mean, she's just so talented, and it was really crazy to think of just, like, having her standing there instead of like working on something or being creative or like letting her time, like it's a lot of time.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of time and a lot of energy. And so I think you need to try to find that balance where, you're taking care of your people, they're having a good time and they don't get burned out because that's easy to do.
Yeah. So it took a year for you to realize that your niche, your sweet spot was dinner, to put your energy into dinner, which will free up time during the day to give back to yourself so you can get that level of balance, and also to elevate what you already do well, is what I'm hearing from you. So that was your biggest challenge, was the time demand, right? So when you solved this problem by only focusing on dinner, what was your next challenge?
I think next challenge was really just to get people in the door and to keep them coming back. And that really has morphed in the last like year and a half to 2 years with the great staff that I have now. I mean, I have handfuls of amazing servers who have made connections with everyone in the area. They've made connections and people keep coming back, and we're on the map.
Yeah. So I think we can probably dissect this, because I'm sure there's tons of lessons in here on how to bring people in, but most importantly, how to bring them back. What was your approach? What worked well for you in reflection?
I think it goes back when we talk about like hosting.
Yeah.
Like I love hosting and I love getting to know people. And when you come in here, like I'm here to take care of you. Like I want to know what you need before you know what you need. Like if you're running out of your cocktail, like I'd like to just have a fresh one ready for you, like knowing that you're going to have a second, or, having a regular roll up and what their cocktail of choice is. And before they even get through the door, like you have it made and waiting for them.
What does that communicate?
Oh, well, I mean, like they're like, oh my God, like you care about me, or you're looking out for me, or like, know me.
Treatment. Exactly. I mean, you cannot let your people know enough that you see them, that you appreciate them, and like your actions are way louder than your words, Well,
the truth is, in a restaurant, like you're nothing without your guests.
Yeah.
Like you aren't. There's, at the end of the day, like you can have a restaurant, but if you don't have people walking in your door,
you won't have it for long.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, that was a waste.
Yeah. So how do you communicate that these relationships are so important? Like paint that picture for us so we can do it in our own businesses.
Well, again, that like for me, that goes back to hiring the right people who are going to fit like your model. And it's nice when you have the opportunity to pick and choose. You don't always get that choice though. So when you don't get that choice and you're working with the best that you can work with, or that you have, in a small town, like I think it's really just trying to show people through example, like if I own this place, but I'm willing to like know everybody's name who walks through that door, and I'm here to make a relationship, but I don't make tips, and I don't know, like my relationship with them is just, that's what's valuable to me. So I hope that people will see that, being in the restaurant and being a server or having those connections, it's not just about like the tips you're making, it's about the relationships you're making, and also the connections that you can make, and how it can like branch you out into so many different things. I mean, this industry, you get to talk to so many people, and having that opportunity to like ask about like what kind of job do you do, or where have you traveled, or I don't know, where do your kids go to school, like what's a great recipe you've used, like having those,
bringing them into it, making them more than just a pay, like they're a person, they're a relationship, they're more than just the check.
Totally. Absolutely. You're more than a number. You're more than a check. Like you're part of our being. And without you, again, like we can't be here. Yeah.
And it sounds like a big part of what it was too, is knowing that like you constantly need to be growing your team and adding like, and just elevating your team. And like, and it seems like to me that's where your focus was constantly on recruiting talent, passionate people who have the hospitality gene, and knowing that you're not going to get a staff of just like 8 players all at once. You need to take care of those people and then hang on to them and use them to attract onto yourself even better, or like just as good, right? Mm-hmm. Like attracts like. I love that.
And sometimes you just have to take a chance. Like you see somebody who you think has the right mentality and they don't have any experience, but you are willing to work with them, and that they're going to work with you too, because you also don't want to invest your time and energy into someone or something and not have it pan out either, because the cost of losing an employee is also extremely significant.
Yeah. So what are some of the unique things you do to retain your employees?
I mean, I just think our model here, where it really is team oriented and that we have a understanding of family, I think it's just, that I don't know. I mean, honestly, like for me to keep my staff, I think they just need to know, or they do know, that I really do care about them and respect them and want the best for them. If somebody were to come up and tell me that they got another job or they were able to pursue something, like I would be so excited for them. Yeah. I know sometimes people go into feel like going up to their boss and like quitting or having to have a conversation is really intimidating, or like you just don't want to go there. But I feel like the relationships that I've, enabled myself to have with my team is that they know they can approach me for anything. And at the end of the day, I really just want them to be happy, and I want them to be successful in whatever, wherever that takes them.
Yeah. So I try to talk a little bit about COVID, not so much what you did to evolve, but where you are now and what your plan for the future is. But before we get into that, is there anything we haven't discussed up to this point? Any areas of where you think you shine as an owner, or where your restaurant shines as an operation, that if we were to learn this from you or hear this from you, it would make us all better?
Well, really for me, it's about being innovative and trying to just continue to grow and morph, because you can never really ride the same wave. You're always going to have different things coming in life and trends, and you can't just sit still and let things happen around you. You have to be willing to move with it. So one of my sayings is like, life throws you curves, so you learn to swerve. Yeah. And I think, you just kind of have to be willing to go with the flow and identify that, life's not perfect, or the restaurant's not always going to be perfect. And as long as you're doing the best that you can do each day to push yourself to, keep your staff growing, to get your sales up there, to expand your space, to maximize your tables, to increase your turn times, like whatever you can do to make yourself better and to really work hard daily and to just focus on.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, how do you know you're growing? What are you tracking to know? Like, what are the key performance indicators that you're tracking to say that, we're moving in the right direction? How are you tracking it?
I track it with covers, and I track it with sales. So how many people are coming in and out of the door. We use our online reservation system, so I get updates daily about our reviews, what we sold, our average covers from 1 week to the next, our, loss of revenue, how much have we comped, how much have we voided.
What you track, what's the saying? What's tracked is, or what's measured is minded, or something like that. There's a few sayings around it. They're escaping me right now. But you have to follow those numbers. You have to know where you were, and you have to know what effort you put in and what the result of that effort was, so you can know if your effort's being like weighed, like if it's having an effect. Yeah. Right. Those are all great key performance indicators. And you mentioned your reservation system. What are you using?
We use Resi.
Okay.
And I don't know. Resi works out pretty well for us. It's, I don't know. It's really interactive. Guests can go onto our website and book online. It gives us the opportunity to have a digital floor plan where you can move things and track, if someone's a VIP or a regular, or they hate, fish.
Yeah. So transitioning into COVID-19, are you still able to use these platforms? Do you have to give up platforms like Resi? Like, are they still serving you into the new normal, quote unquote?
Yeah, for now they're working out great. Resi is integral to us being able to seat everyone and get the reservations and make it as convenient for people to book. We also use Toast, which is our point of sale system, and they're phenomenal. I really do enjoy Toast. They're super interactive, and as far as like ordering online, and really intuitive POS system, which is great for my staff. What was the question?
The question was the evolution into. I started asking
COVID.
about Resi. I was just curious about Resi because I know it's a great platform. And Toast is another tool that's always being recommended. We actually, side note, if you go with Toast right now and you use my links, I'll have a link in today's episode. I will send you a check for $1,000. I'll split my commission with you to say thank you. Great platform, and they've been super supportive of the show since sponsorship's been slow. But back to your story and the evolution of paint the picture of what your operation is now, and what tools are you leveraging? How are you planning on staying in business for the next, say, 4 to 5 months until hopefully we're out of this thing?
So I have been going on multiple different approaches. When we've been expanding our seating areas, so besides having our dining room, we have a tent in our backyard, which we actually have an indirect heater for. And
I saw that looks like a compressor out there.
Yeah, it's a 110 gallon diesel engine, and it basically just heats under the tent. So even though it's freezing cold in November, I've actually expanded our seating so that we haven't lost tables, which we normally, so we're actually, kind of in an okay place. Also, I believe right now that this is a time where we want to try to support everyone around us. So I've been trying to support local musicians. Throughout the summer, we've been hosting music on certain nights, and then
you've had Artie here a couple of times, haven't you?
Yeah, Artie was my Sunday brunch man.
Artie and LJ are great friends of mine. A little shout out to them. If you're in the New Hampshire area and you need some talent, Artie Francoeur, we need to get. He's amazing, so talented.
He's awesome.
Little
Love
plug
to have
for
him.
there, buddy. So what else are you guys doing to stay relevant during COVID-19? Have you changed your systems, your technology around at all?
We haven't changed anything, but we've been really fortunate to have already been using Toast.
Yeah.
So Toast's online platform for online ordering is really terrific. It's just super easy to navigate, and it's easy to adjust your delivery times or pickup times, and so I guess that was something I felt fortunate that we had already had established with us. Otherwise, it's just really, we have implemented new systems of, how often you're touching a table, or the distance that you have to stand away from people, and making adjustments there. But you can see these fine divider screens that we have behind us, and all the tables are spaced. So honestly, we're just doing. Every day things change, and we're just doing whatever needs to.
Once you get it figured out, all the regulations are going to be gone.
I mean, I think we're super fortunate. Our model hasn't really had to change too much. Yeah. We have increased our our online ordering, but besides that, we've had a lot of.
And you were set up for that before, because you were using Toast before COVID-19 hit.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has increased by at least, I'd say 25%, honestly. So we have shifted a little bit more toward that, and I know that moving forward, we're planning on doing some kits, protein, starch, veg. What's the fam want?
Yeah. Awesome. I've loved this conversation. Before we go to the speed round, we'll make it a quick speed round for you. I like to ask all my guests, how have you transformed? The mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. And I believe we're going to transform the industry by helping transform individuals. But how have you transformed personally?
Wow. I mean, the path that I've been on since I started the restaurant industry has been hugely transformative. Between my ability to travel and see the world and get my hands into dirt and vineyards, that's been huge. The relationships that I've built with guests and friends, that's been huge. But I think I've really matured a lot. Like I said, in my early 20s, I didn't quite have that same level of understanding or compassion or maybe empathy. Mm-hmm. And I think that really goes a long way in your relationships with people.
We are back, and the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor, a habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success?
Hard work.
What is your biggest weakness?
I'm Irish and I hold a grudge.
Oh, how have you dealt with that weakness over the time?
I still hold my grudges.
What is one question you ask or thing you look for during the interview process when you're growing your team?
Oh, why are you here?
What are you looking for exactly?
Because I don't want them to just say they're here for a job. I want to know why they want to be part of the Rail Penny.
But weren't you just looking for cash when you first took your job with Jumpin Jays?
Oh, heck yeah. I can't even believe I got offered the job.
Right. I love it. No, you're right though. Like, don't like you gotta, like, what do we say? Like, first seek to understand, then like you gotta understand like what drives them, what motivates them.
Absolutely.
What is your biggest challenge today?
Oh, besides COVID, I would say, oh my gosh, honestly, I'm so fortunate. Maybe staffing, but I really am so lucky right now. We're in such a good spot.
And that's hard. I mean, we're not a lot of people in a good spot right now. So to hear that, I think is a testament to your preparation and your hard work for sure.
I count my blessings and I take chances, and I'm just super thankful.
Yeah, I love it. What is one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team? This is a way to be, a way to act, core value.
I ask my team to be swans, and I like them to look like on the surface that they are calm, cool, collected, and they've got everything in check, and they're just like very naturally moving around. But at the, if you look under the water, like your feet are moving fast, you're hustling, and you've got it like you're go.
I love it. And what is one like standard of service? So this is something that's common within the four walls of your business to go above and beyond what's expected from you. What is one thing you guys do to exceed those expectations regarding service?
Oh, geez. As far as service, I mean, I'm really meticulous about the cleanliness of tables and making sure that there really isn't any like debris on it. And then just knowing what the guest wants before you do or before they do. So suggesting a cocktail or, recommending an app to start with.
Okay. How do you know what they want? Like, is it just because of the experience? Maybe do you have data on that person? Like seeing what their ordering history was? Is that something you do with Resi?
I think like just identifying like if somebody is enjoying a glass of wine, like saying, "Can I get you a fresh glass?" Like as they're a few sips down. I mean, there's also a whole bunch. Yes, anticipating needs or power of suggestion and getting your check to continue to grow.
Yeah. What is one book that's a must read to make us a better person or restaurant owner?
What to Do with a Chance.
What to Do with a Chance. Written by? Do you remember?
Kobe Amada.
We'll figure it out.
Kobi Amada, I believe.
What was the biggest lesson he taught you in that book? Or is that a she?
It's a man.
Okay.
And it's honestly about just taking your chances and recognizing that if you're not willing to go for it at some point in time, they just might not come your way again.
Absolutely. I love it. What is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
I show appreciation. I think a lot of time it's a lot easier to get on people for what they're doing wrong and not what they're doing right. And I think that that's something that we can always remind ourselves to do is to show praise.
Yeah, I love it. What is one service that you've outsourced or hired? So this is not necessarily like a technology, but like a person that does something well that you've outsourced to.
Reliable equipment in Dover.
And why them?
I called them needing help to keep my tent heated during these colder months, and they were here within a day with a diesel heater and hooked me all up.
Nice. So if you're in the Northeast New Hampshire area and you need some equipment, rental equipment, call Reliable. What is one piece of technology you've adopted within the past year or so that's had a huge impact on your operation, maybe the past 2 years?
Honestly, Instagram.
And you weren't using Instagram beyond a year ago or 2 years ago?
I am not an Instagrammer.
Neither am I, to be honest. I don't know where I'd be without Jared. He's all over the Instagram for me.
I am so not good at social media. I have like a Samsung 7 cell phone. Like I am just so not on that level. Yeah. But I did. One of my employees was really eager to be our social media and volunteered to just take pictures. That's and huge. Do stuff, and that actually has it transitioned into a position for him.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a big part of our conversation. So right after my interview with Kate, I'm doing a workshop with Sean Walchef from Cali Barbecue and Digital Hospitality, and I kind of march to your beat where if I don't have to have a piece of technology in me or on me or in front of me, then I'm a happier person. This is why I choose to drive across the country to do my interviews, because I like to be in person. I like to have that personal human presence, and I don't like to exist through through devices. Mm-hmm. But it is critical, and I'm not going to say that social media doesn't have an impact, because I think we've proven it absolutely does. But you can teach your people, you can give them systems, you can around social media, and you can give them an idea of what you're trying to accomplish. And you can absolutely delegate this. This is something that if you're not good at it, then delegate it because it's crucial. You have to stay top of mind. What does this relationship look like? How did you delegate this project?
Again, I was really fortunate that Brendan Burns has an awesome little camera, and he loves social media, and he was excited he had just graduated and was kind of looking for like that next step, and he thought this would be just a fun experience for him to be able to toy around with and maybe something to put on his resume at the end of the day. And I was like, yeah, I'll support that. Like, I'll get behind you, because I know that social media plays an enormous role in the success of restaurants. It's for me and you, like, I think we're more of the exception than the rule, where we aren't necessarily as connected to social media. But
that's why we are tribe animals, because we can't do it by ourselves. We need to rely on the diversity of the group, of the strengths and weaknesses of the group.
Totally.
And like, if you're not good at it, I'm sure you're good at something that compensates, we're stronger together.
Absolutely. Totally. And there is, like, when you're opening a restaurant, or if you have a restaurant, like, there is no way that you can do everything by yourself. You'd go absolutely crazy. So having people built in there, having, staff who are volunteering to help out or take pictures, or I'm willing to take any help I can get, honestly.
I love it. And this is the last question. It's a doozy. Get ready for it. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be gone with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you can leave behind for the good of humanity and for mankind. What would those 3 pieces, for the good of humanity and your legacy is what I meant to say. What would those 3 pieces of advice be?
That is a doozy. My 3 pieces of advice for my legacy. I guess the first one is work hard. Number 2, find the balance.
2.
And number 3, love your people.
3. I love it. This has been a great conversation, Kate. Thank you so much. We wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. So who's somebody you respect and admire and believe would make a great guest mentor on the show, like you made for us today? Like, if I got this person on the show, you're listening to that episode 100%. Who would that be?
I'm going to give you 2.
Oh, yes. Give them to me.
So, first, I'm going to give you Will Miska.
Okay.
He owns Ornell's Barbecue with Jay McSharry. And I'm going to call out Jay McSharry.
Jay, it's a matter of time, man.
Yep. I think you've hit the point where you've kind of reached out to everyone else in his wheelhouse.
Kate said you have to do it.
I think he has to come talk to you.
Thank you so much. I would love to get Will. I was actually just at Ornell's, and I've had them on my radar too, because I have a lot of respect for Jay, and I know he has an eye for talent. So if he's willing to go into a partnership or to bring somebody into his family of restaurants, I know it will be a great episode. So Will, look out. I'm coming after you. I'd love to make it happen. Jay, you've been on my radar from day one, man. I'd love to get you on the show. Look out, guys. I'm coming after you. And how can we connect with you? Maybe we've enjoyed your episode and we want to come join your team and be mentored by you. What's the best way to connect?
Best way to connect is by checking us out on our website at railpennytavern.com, where you can contact us, or you can reach out to me personally at kate@railpennytavern.com.
And you're on Instagram now, too.
And you can Instagram us, but I don't follow it, so you'll have to...
Do you know the handle? I'll look it up.
Rail Penny?
You just proved your point. All right. Beautiful. This has been a great chat. Thank you so much, Kate. I've really enjoyed every moment of it. There is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a great day.
Cheers.